In the beginning, there was light, infinite and expansive, flowing out from an unseen center. Throughout creation, there is light from the steady sun, the glowing moon, the flashing meteors, the twinkling stars, and the auroras dancing in the northern skies. Within each part of creation, there is light, slowed down and held close by every cell and molecule, by each atom and element. Within you, there is light, the same light as the source, the same radiance that is in all creation. May this small flame be a constant reminder to you of our true nature and our kinship with all beings. The Fine Art of the Good Guest by Jeffrey A. Lockwood. The most important thing that I have learned in traveling to more than 20 countries is the art of being a guest. And I am a particularly fine visitor at the supper table. I've consumed live fish in Inner Mongolia, not quite coagulated blood sausage in the Tibetan Plateau, shredded pig's ear in China, grilled lamb fat in Uzbekistan, horse steaks in Kazakhstan, vodka from the fermented milks of mares in Siberia, Vegemite in Australia, goat in Brazil, and snails in France. I don't have an iron stomach by any means, but I do have the will to be a virtuous visitor. We are all visitors, even when we are home. Our time in any relationship or place is ultimately limited. We are passing through. Nobody stays forever. How we might act if we considered ourselves guests in the lives of our friends and family. Being a good guest is rather simple in principle, but occasionally challenging in practice. One begins by demanding nothing more than the bare elements of life and dignity, which every host is more than delighted to exceed. The good guest then simply allows the person to be a good host, to share his gifts, to play her music, to tell his stories, to show her places, and to serve his foods. Finally, a guest should cultivate and express genuine gratitude. It need not be effusive or exorbitant, only sincere. We might also think of ourselves as uninvited, but not unwelcome guests of the planet. And I think the rules for being a good guest of the world are just the same. Ask little, accept what is offered, and give thanks. To introduce our guest today, Nadia Javaid. Nadia is originally from Pakistan, and she moved to New York when she was the prime age of 7. She has a master's in psychology from St. John's University and a law degree from Summit Law School in Arizona. She's currently a staff attorney at Legal Services of North Dakota, and she's a member of the Bismarck Muslim Community Center. She's here to talk to us about women and education in Islam. Please welcome Nadia Javaid.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me today and giving me an opportunity to speak about Islam and women and education. Islam itself is a really big topic, and honestly, before I even begin, I'd like to, as a lawyer, have a disclaimer displayed out there that I am not an expert in Islam, and what I speak about today is basically my perspective on women in Islam and based on my personal experiences as a Muslim woman. So, to begin with, people often wonder what Islam is, and to define it in one small sentence of literally 5 words, it's a way of life. That's what Islam is to me. It's a way of life. I'm going to leave it there. And then now I'm going to go into women. So women and girls have been victims of rootless power struggles for centuries in all societies, in all cultures. Sadly, but truly, many societies include, many societies, including some of the Muslim societies, continue to exercise this difference between men and women, such as unequal pay compared to men in workplaces, where women are required to go on disability just because they have to deliver a baby. In some cultures, women are forced to marry forced into marriage or prostitution. And then denial of education, among other things. And today my focus will be on education because I feel like it's a hot topic and it's an important topic for women with all backgrounds. Okay, so as I said earlier, that some of the Muslim communities, there are gender differences and inequalities, and there's the common accusation made against Islam and a disparity in educational opportunities between men and women in many Muslim countries is often cited as primary example of why it's done. To me, and as a Muslim person, as a woman, and I'm sure most of you will agree with me, education is one of the most important factors in determining the economic, social, and political advancement of a society. Often Islam is blamed for this disparity in Muslim countries. However, this is not true. The roadblock is made by or built by the society in the name of religion by the society. And for example, my mother grew up in a very small town, and for her to go to school, she had to travel far because there was no girls' school in her town. And that's a roadblock made by the society because for them, education for women is secondary. They would rather send their sons to school than their daughters because in their mindset, women should stay home or girls should stay home and focus on becoming domestic engineers. I call them domestic engineers, but it's housewives, or be the woman, her places in the home and the kitchen. So that was my power to where I am today, looking at my mom, how she struggled to become a teacher, to go out of her way to go to school and then become a teacher, and then educate in towns and cities where it was highly impossible to provide education to women, or young girls in that matter. Unfortunately, this is a sad reflection upon Muslims and societies that we have built, since knowledge is one of the most important pillars in Islam. The first revelation upon Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had made the commandment to read, speaks volumes of emphasis on Islam, lays on education. And it's basically saying that ever since Islam came, it's about teaching and educating women, men, everyone in general. It's just not men or it's just not women. They both have equal opportunities to be educated. It is important to excel in knowledge, and it has been cited over and again in the Quran many times. While I was preparing this thing, I researched online, and one of the websites stated that it was actually cited over 500 times in the Quran that women should be knowledgeable and they should be educated. It does not say women, it says the word man, and the best analogy I have to describe how the definition of man includes women is that we have the U.S. Constitution, and it was created by the forefathers of this country, and it has the word man. When it was first written, and for many, many, many years after that, man was defined as someone who was white and literally a man. Over the years, changes were made. The definition of man included the color of people, I should say the color of man or men. And then up until 1920s, I believe, that's when women got voting rights, and that's when the definition of women was included into the man that was written in the U.S. Constitution. And then until recently, gays and lesbian have been defined as man under the U.S. Constitution because they have been given a right to marry. Even though now we see new laws coming in that they claim that it's freedom of religion, I believe it's called. I haven't really had a chance to study on it, but where literally people are not providing services to gays and lesbians. So if we just use that analogy to understand why people perceive, or I should say men who practice Islam believe that women shouldn't be given a right to study or given a right to be educated, it's because it's pure misunderstanding of the definition of the word man. The word man in the Quran, just like the way in the U.S. Constitution, includes men and women. So that there I rest my case that, women in Islam have just as many rights. They are considered to be human beings, just like any other religion, just like any other society, just like any other culture. But it's the society that we grow up in, the culture that we live in, start making up their own rules and regulations to show their power to people, to suppress women, to make them feel oppressed that, yes, we have the power and we can tell you that you're our property. Even though in Islam is the first religion that actually gives the power to divorce and then gives the power to a woman to get divorced from a man. It's not till death do us apart. Marriage is actually a mutual contract between two people, a man and a woman, to get married, list their obligations, as in if a woman walks into marriage with finances, with property, if she gets divorced, she walks out with it. Her husband has no right to it. He has no power to take that money. Whereas if we look at the Catholic or the England background, if we look at the Catholicism or the Roman Empire, where women were actually treated as property. And I did not know of this until I went to law school and I took a property class where marriage was like basically a trade. A woman walked in with property and it became her husband's. She had no power to use it. If the husband died, his family got it. She had no power over it. Whereas in Islam, if a woman got married and her parents gave her billions of dollars, it's hers. And then it passes on to her kids. She can do whatever she wants to do with it. It does not go to the husband unless she decides to give it to him. Same thing if she's an employed wife, if she's working, regardless of how much money she makes, it's her. She has no moral obligation. She has no responsibility to give the money to her husband to support the family. It's the way she wants to spend the money. It's her right to do whatever she wants to do with it. If she wants to give it to her parents, she can do that. The husband has no control of it. Whereas if the husband is working, his responsibility is actually to take care of the family and financially support the family. So that's women in Islam in short. We can go on for days, and I probably need a whole bunch of scholars to come in and state what rights of women are and how they are perceived today and why they are perceived the way they are. But in short, if people ask me, why did your parents let you go to school? Yes, damn right, my parents did let me go to school. Because they believed in educating women and giving them the power they deserve. That have been my right as being born in a Muslim household or being born to my parents. I have no other explanation for that. But yeah, I was born with this right, just like all the other women sitting in here or throughout the entire world, that we're born with this right and no one cannot take this away from us. That's all.
Actually wanted to know about what part of Islam is when some women cover their heads and some don't.
Okay, so the question is, what part of Islam says you can cover your head and what part says you can't? There are different schools of thought on that. I did look that up. Before I say what I found, I'll say why I don't cover up. Growing up, my father had 2 rules in the house. You speak Urdu and you dress modestly. So I'm dressed modestly, and when I'm at home, I speak in Urdu. He did not want us to cover our heads or wear the hijab because he felt that you needed to be, first of all, he didn't like that restriction because no one did it in his house, but also he felt that he wasn't religious enough, and then he didn't want to force something on us that would make us rebel and go against our religious beliefs. So that's why I don't wear it. Maybe, when I turn 50, I don't know, one day I'll wake up and I'll decide I'm ready to wear it, but as of right now, I'm not ready to wear it. And then back to your question, there are different schools of thought on that. Some people say it's mandatory, and then others say that it's optional. As long as you're dressed modestly, you should not be questionable. You're going to see there are women out there who wear a hijab, but then their dressing would be questionable because it'll be tight. It will be, if they're walking, you can literally see every part of their body. So even though if they're dressed, they're fully covered, but the dressing itself is not modest. So I hope that answers your question.
Speaking to education reminded me of my mother, who grew up in Kohat, so near the Afghan border. And her schooling, she graduated at the top of her class, 6th grade. That was the last school in that area of what is now Pakistan. And one of her long-term regrets all her life was she never was able to go to school. And so it's that societal thing.
That's right.
And brilliant as she was, her oldest brother went to England to study and flunked out medical school. And she would have been an excellent physician, I'm sure.
I appreciate your designation or your definition of Islam as a way of life, and I think that's one of the things that's very hard for a lot of folks raised in this country to understand, because for most of us, our religion or faith community it's part of our life, it's an adjunct to our life, and ideally it might be a way of life, but that's not how we see it or understand it. And so I think that contributes a lot to some of the misunderstandings and things that are said that are just kind of ignorant. And then the other thing that I couldn't help but relate to, I guess, is just that whole language thing. And I've always kind of objected to that, and why I want equal time or gender neutral pronouns.
Right.
But even aside from that, I mean, so much of what has happened, whether it's in Islam or Christianity, has, I think, also, as you stated, been about power and control rather than practice of a faith.
Right.
Thank you for speaking today. If you feel comfortable, would you share a memory or a tradition in Islam that brings you a lot of joy or something that you love personally?
Sure. I love the month of Ramadan. It's coming up soon. We basically have a lunar calendar, and we have our own year. Don't ask me what Islamic year we're in. Should apologize for that. But it's basically we fast for 30 months, and 30 days. Thank you. We fast for 30 days, and the fasting starts at sunrise. So we eat before sunrise, and then we don't eat or drink anything throughout the day, and then we eat at sunset. It's very festive. That's when families get together. And growing up, it was a big thing because my mom and them are 10 siblings, and they all have a lot of kids. So I feel like I fit into North Dakota because that's very common in North Dakota too, that people have a lot of kids, so it's nice. But anyways, so we would all get together. They would be about 75 of us, cousins my age, older, younger, and we would have a great time. And then on the weekends, we would have sleepovers and then literally stay up all night, so just so we can eat and then go back to sleep and literally sleep all day. And then, even though that's not the proper way of fasting, but as kids, I guess we were forgiven. And then at the end of Ramadan, we have a holiday. It's called Eid, Eid al-Fitr, and it's just like I shouldn't say it's just like Christmas, but the best way I can say it is like Christmas. We don't exchange presents. The younger siblings or kids, they always get money from their parents, their aunts and uncles, or their elder cousins or siblings or whatever, but it was the most amazing thing because you walked home with a pocket full of money. So those are some of the good memories that I have, and we try to keep that tradition. All of my siblings are married, and pretty much all of them have kids. So during Ramadan, even though we all live in different parts of the country, we try to either get together during Eid or a couple days before Eid, so we can kind of bring that back into the family.
The right for women to vote was introduced in 1919, and then the 19th Amendment was ratified in 1920.
Right.
Interestingly, 1927, Alice Paul and Crystal Eastman wrote the Equal Rights Amendment, 1927. It took until 1972 for Congress to accept it, and then not until 1977, we had 35 of 38 states that were ready to ratify that, and we were 3 states short of ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment. Phyllis Schlafly comes along, then 5 states pull out of it, and then it's just languished there. Good news is, in terms of women attaining bachelor's degrees and advanced degrees, we're at an all-time high in terms of percentage. That's moving in the right direction.
Right.
But my question is, why have we stalled out on the Equal Rights Amendment? The last deadline we had for it was 1982. And we need to exert that will again and get things back in shape. And so what can we do to keep the momentum going to you?
I agree with you. Honestly, I think it's a step at a time, a change. Instead of focusing on what people are doing in other parts of the world, I think it's time we focus. I might sound like a presidential candidate, but I think we really need to focus in the U.S. We need to focus on our issues. We need to focus on how we can fix our country. And we definitely need to, work on giving equal rights, ending racial discrimination. We do have a couple here, and I'm sure, they understand what I'm talking about. So it's just sad that, we go out there, we pinpoint, we highlight flaws and faults of other people, other societies, other cultures, other religions, but we fail to see what's wrong within ourselves. So we need to start from here, and then we can go on and help other people.
Well, I thank you, and I agree. We don't have any high moral ground to stand on. When I was a young man, women going to Catholic Church needed to have their head covered. We point our finger one way or the other, but that was the case. In the 60s, women went to college, and the idea was to find a man so they could go home and be a housewife.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's not any different from...
No, we're not so far, and it's still to some degree, but we're not so far away from that we have any right to point
Right.
our finger.
And I'd just like to add something. Maybe some of you know, some of you don't. I'm from Pakistan. When we actually have had a female president, we have prime minister, so we've had a female prime minister, and it's just that we're standing here in the United States, and we still haven't had a female president, a woman president, and it only took us so many 100 years to have a president of color, so.
So I visited Turkey several years ago, and I noticed that the mosques had services for one sex or another, but not together. I also know there is an Islamic community center here. I probably have labeled it incorrectly, but can you tell me about how things work here, and in general, how things work, if you know? Thank you.
Okay. It's pretty much the same thing. The men and the women pray separately, and it's for obvious reason. In Islam, it's about respect and giving respect and getting respect, and women are to be given that kind of respect, and we don't want any kind of distraction or the Satan, I guess, I don't know. Like, it's just when you're praying, you should be focused to the God, or Allah should be praying, not gazing or looking at the woman standing next to you or sitting next to you while praying, even though they're covered. Men are men, women are women, and they can never be friends, I guess. That's the best way to define it. So in my personal opinion, or in the way I look at it, it's the reason that, why they're separated. And then the Bismarck Muslim Community Center here, or you go to any mosque anywhere in the world, the women will not pray in the same room as men. Now, if you go to like small towns or a third world country in Pakistan, there are a lot of mosques where they don't have a prayer room or a section for women to pray, because for them, women can pray at home. They shouldn't go to the mosque and pray. But in most of the places, when they do have a room for women to pray, or there is a section for women to pray, it will be separate from men. And it's not any different from what we have here, because it's the religion itself is the same. Culturally, there may be differences as to, depending on what background you come from, there are cultural differences within a community, a Muslim community, but there are no religious differences as far as praying goes. Thank you. Thank you.